Welcome to In Conversation with Kashmir Times. I'm ANURADHA BHASIN, and joining me today is Mihir Desai, human rights lawyer and vice president of PUCL. 7 Kashmiri students at Sher-e-Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences were arrested under the Unlawful Activities and Prevention Act, and on the basis of a complaint by one person. The charges were invoked after they allegedly celebrated Australia's victory in the World Cup. And the police said that the case was filed on the basis of a complaint which mentioned threats and bullying. The police has now dropped the charges under UAPA, but and the 7 students have been granted interim bail, but there are other cases that are still pending against them. So how do you, of course, the charges under UAPA have been dropped, but to have invoked them in the first place and then still keep criminal cases pending against the students, how do you see this? And particularly, can anyone be arrested for cheering or celebrating the victory of another country's team in sports?
Well, let me put it this way: that should a person be arrested? No. Can a person be arrested in India right now for anything? Yes. The answer would be yes. It's really shocking that if you talk about cricket or any other sport, but cricket, since India is involved, okay, when Indians play in Australia or Indians play in South Africa, take for instance Indians playing in West Indies or South Africa, okay, a cricket match. People who have settled there for 100 years, 150 years would come to cheer India, okay, who are citizens of South Africa, who are citizens of Australia, would come to cheer India, okay, for whatever it is they still identify at certain level emotionally, culturally with India, so they cheer. Now, this is seen as something great. The Indian establishment sees this. A large number of Indian people see it also as something very something to be welcomed. Contrary to that, okay, if you look at this situation, okay, forget about anything else. UAPA is a law basically to deal with terrorism and to deal with secession. Okay, these are the two purposes of UAPA. Okay? Now, cheering for some team, okay, our insensitivity and intolerance has grown so much, and the authoritarianism has grown so much that anybody cheering any other team, anybody who wants to be sportsman, I mean, anybody who has a sportsman spirit. Australia did play well, and so people cheered them. I think that intolerance has grown so much, and the police are under constant pressure from the executive, from the higher executive, that they should take action against anybody, especially if you are a Kashmiri, anybody who is seen who even in their dreams think of something critical of India. So that is what is happening right now. It's fortunate that ultimately, because of the uproar and possibly some saner council prevailed and they dropped the charges. But the point is that how can they still be criminally charged for applauding a team which has won a World Cup tournament? I mean, how can you be criminally charged for that?
The police said in response to the criticism that they received that this case is not about, the cases were not slapped against them for celebrating the victory of the team, but for bullying and threats. And this has been done, and they have treated one complaint, some person's complaint, as evidence in this. Is a mere complaint enough evidence to slap these charges, to arrest a person without an investigation?
Well, arrest definitely shouldn't have happened. Okay, let me put it this way. If somebody is actually bullied, somebody is actually threatened, yes, that person has a right to file a complaint. Okay. But arrest, I'm very doubtful whether anybody was bullied or not. I mean, I'm really looking at the situation in Kashmir. I find it very, very surprising that Muslims would go around bullying, somebody. I mean, that's something which is ordinary. I mean, students I'm talking about, ordinary Muslim students would go around bullying somebody is something which I find surprising. But assuming that happened, okay, what do? You just you call them for investigation, you investigate the matter, you try to resolve the matter rather than foisting them with charges, UAPA, and even criminal charges. I think that's something which is you know which should not have happened, but which does happen in India nowadays on a very routine and regular basis.
Like something like there was a report in the Indian Express which mentioned that the university administration did not know anything about the altercation between the students or the complaint. And should that have been the normal course, involve the university administration, sort out the issue rather than criminalizing this?
Definitely. I mean, you see, I mean, it's like ragging. Okay. Ragging happens in universities across the country, across the world. Okay. And ultimately, when you have a large student community on a campus, okay, there are bound to be disagreements. Sometimes those disagreements take a little rough form. Okay. But ordinarily, what happens is the university at its own level resolves them. Somebody brings it to the notice of a higher authority. The higher authority will call both parties and try to resolve the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that is how it should be. Okay? Ultimately, university is a place for creativity, for freedom, etc., which is no more the case in India now. It's basically to shove down everybody's throat only a single narrative. That's what is happening more and more with the universities. But otherwise, in a normal situation, it's within the university, you should not call the police. I mean, that has been one of the demands of the student rights students since last 40, 50 years across India. That do not have police chowkis inside universities. We will resolve the problem. Of course, if it becomes a major problem, you might have to call in the police. But this, I don't see it as a major issue at all.
And this is not the first time that the students have been criminalized over cricket. In October 2021, the police filed an open FIR, and this is in Jammu and Kashmir under UAPA, against students and staff of a medical college. And in the same month, 3 Kashmiri Muslims were arrested at an engineering college in Agra for sedition and cyber terrorism. And it was alleged that they had circulated anti-national messages after a cricket match and pertaining to the cricket match. And would you then say that the action of the investigating agencies was as unjustified as it was in the recent case? And
absolutely, I would definitely. I think this criminalizing any kind of dissent, from what the narrative of the establishment is, okay, has been growing, in a very, very wide manner, very exponentially. It has been growing in the last 10 years. Let me put it very frankly. Since BJP came to power, NDA came to power, it has been growing exponentially. And the executive, the police act under their control, act as per what they say. So any dissent they see, whether it's on WhatsApp, whether it's on, they have been talking recently that on WhatsApp or Facebook, etc., posts, people are being criminalized for that, people are being jailed for that, people are charged under UAPA for that, not only in Kashmir, of course, much more, but also in various other parts of the country. So this is something, now the sedition law has been stayed for the time being. But there are various other laws. Harassment police can do in many multiple manners. UAPA is one. Public Security Act in Kashmir is another. Preventive detention is third. Hate speech, foisting hate speech sections on people is another. So there are various ways in which the police, any kind of dissent, any disagreement, you are in a stage of complete illiberal democracy right now in India. You have elections, and between elections, you have no democracy. That's the situation which we have reached.
And this is not even dissent, this is just over a sporting event. And
Correct.
would you say that, sports lovers and sports, would it be correct to say that the different kind of behavior of some of the sports lovers is being weaponized against Muslims, particularly Kashmiris. And I say different because, whereas the majority is kind of celebrating and cheering for a particular team or the country's team, there are people who may be cheering for another sports person. And is that kind of difference being weaponized against Muslims and particularly Kashmiris?
Definitely. It definitely being weaponized against Muslims, against Kashmiris. It can be against Christians tomorrow. All kinds of any kind of religious minority, not just religious minorities. It can be Dalits, it can be tribals. But the point is, right now, of course, the communal agenda of the government is mainly to target Muslims, and within that, also to target the Kashmiri population as a whole. And therefore, I would definitely agree with you there that there is a weaponization happening, and that weaponization happens in various ways. This is very innocuous what we are talking about, namely somebody just celebrating or bursting crackers or something. Half the times, even these rumors are wrong. Half the times people are arrested or people are attacked, or you see on social media that so many such and such person burst crackers because Pakistan won the match, etc., etc. Now, half the times it's not even true. Assuming it is true at a given point of time. I think we are living in a democracy. I think supposed to be living in a democracy, supposed to be living in a liberal democracy, where all kinds of ideas, all streams of thoughts, all streams of narratives have to be encouraged, so that ultimately, that's how democracy works. And if you're going to clamp down on that, I fear for my country. That's how I look at it.
And this really never was the case. I remember growing up and cheering up as much for maybe Botham or even Imran Khan as much as I would for Gavaskar or any other Indian player, because they were playing well. Nobody had problems. Nobody had.
And just to tell you, about 20 years back, when Pakistan won a test match in Chennai, they went on after winning the match against India, they went on a circle, with and just ran around the thing, and the entire crowd was applauding them. Yeah. Okay, it was a hard-fought match. They won it fair and square, and everybody was appreciating that they played very good cricket. This was the situation 25 years back. Today, you will not find that. Even if somebody wants to applaud, even if I am in a game and I want to applaud, I'll be looking around that if I applaud, say Pakistan, will I be lynched here or not? That would be the fear. So even if people genuinely want to do something, there is a freezing effect of this kind of chilling effect of this kind of
So there's another sports or cricket related case from 2020 in Kashmir. A friendly cricket match was organized by a local youth in the memory of his deceased brother, who was a militant killed in 2019. And he distributed jerseys among the players and some of the spectators too. Later, the Jammu and Kashmir police booked 10 players in the memorial cricket match under the UAPA for glamorizing militancy. And would that be an act of grave criminality? Or if it's still criminality, would it fall within the ambit of terrorism?
It would definitely not fall within the ambit of terrorism in any way. Okay, because a person has died. The police, the military calls him to be a militant. I am not half sure of half the times whom they call militants are militants also or not. Okay, I'm not even, but let me assume he was a militant. Okay, let me assume that he was a militant who was killed. Okay, in some encounter or whatever. And his brother is organizing. Obviously, his brother has affection for him. Okay, and he's in organizing a cricket match. I don't think he's been charged with giving speeches in support of the activities of his brother. Okay, that is not the charge against. That is not the charge against those people. They are only having a cricket match to commemorate somebody's memory. Okay, I mean, and that happens. I mean, today, every year, meetings are planned to commemorate Godse's so-called martyrdom, So, I mean, that happens. Okay. And you have to live with that. That people are going. I mean, if somebody is dead in my family, no matter how bad a person he might have been in the eyes of others, I feel bad about it, and I want to remember him, and I would want others also to remember the good times they had together, etc., etc. So I see nothing wrong with that. I can understand if if in the same match they're glamorizing his deeds and not the man himself, but they're glamorizing that no, this is the way it should be, and and we should attack the military or something like that. Okay, then it's a different matter. Then it might get a color of criminality. Okay, but mere commemoration, mere celebration of somebody, okay, remembering somebody, I don't think it should be. And anyway, it's not a terrorist act. Whether it at all amounts to even criminal act is doubtful.
Talking about like a lot of civil rights activists, they describe the UAPA as a draconian law, and because it gives officers unlimited powers to which can be abused and without being held accountable. Or is there something flawed with the law, or is it the way that it is being used or misused by the investigating agencies? There has been some criticism of the law itself, that this is broad and vaguely worded. So how would you see it?
I would see it. I would criticize it on both counts. First, on the count of the law itself. I mean, forget whether it's misused or not misused. Okay, the law itself defines terrorism in a very, very broad sense. Okay, it defines unlawful activity in a very, very broad and vague sense. For instance, when the law initially came, it was meant to deal with terrorists as we conventionally know. Okay, but now it deals with any economic disruption of the country is also terrorism under the law. Okay, uh, individuals can be identified as terrorists and can be arrested. And the most important thing is, of course, the bail provisions. Okay, because once you are arrested under UAPA, it's very, very difficult to get bail. So it effectively works as a preventive detention law without being a preventive detention law, without having the protection of a preventive detention law. And so, according to me, the law is bad, law is unconstitutional, it should go. But apart from that, it is also being, I don't call it a misuse, I call it a use of UAPA by the executive authorities, okay, to target people. If you are seen as a dissenter who are a Muslim, then you are called a jihadist. If you are not a Muslim, then you are called an urban Naxal, and you are targeted either way. Okay, and you are, and the law is used to, basically the purpose of the law right now, what it has become is to put people behind bars for years together, okay, without ever having a chance of convicting them. Okay? That is what has happened with this law. So you pick up people, you put them behind bars, slap UAPA, nobody is willing to grant you bail. You are inside for 5, 7, 8 years. There is no accountability of the police. There is no accountability. And there was, in fact, if you see quota, okay, which was the precursor to UAPA, there was a provision at least which said that if the police act without, in a malified manner and target somebody, then they can be punished. That provision has been dropped from UAPA. Okay, so the accountability is not there at all. I mean, of any kind. So you can behave the way you want. You won't be responsible. People will be inside for 7, 8 years, and it is used to target. And I can understand if it is used to target a particular terrorist from second terrorist. It's used to target any dissenters. That's the whole problem. So law is bad, execution is bad, both.
And the number of cases is actually staggering. In 2022, the NCRB records now show over 1,000 cases have been logged.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, nearly that.
And this is up from the previous years. And while the conviction rate, and you're part of PUCL, I think my PUCL mentioned that less than 3% of people are actually less than 3% of the cases result in convictions.
Convictions, yes.
And
also what happens, even you must remember one thing, and just taking one more minute, even the convictions which happen, what happens, I'm in jail for 8 years, say, I'm in jail for 8 years under UAPA. The authorities say, the police enter into a bargain, the prosecution enters into a bargain with me, that look, you admit to your crime, and we will allow you to go free by saying that 8 years is enough, now let him go. If you don't admit, you will be inside for 14, 15 years, we don't know how long. So I, in order to get out, will say, okay, yes, I committed the crime, at least now let me go out. Okay? So many of the convictions are like that. It's not even as if some kind of a trial has taken place and somebody is convicted on the basis of evidence. So there are a lot of these underpinnings which are there also.
And that's only 3% of the convictions are happening. So for the rest, even if they are acquitted ultimately, they have already spent several years in prison, and nobody is held accountable for the wrongful confinement. Is that true?
Absolutely.
And
these are various. It's like in India, you have every jail has virtually become Guantanamo Bay kind of thing. Every jail is like that. You are inside, and then especially in the context of UAPA.
And 75% of the cases are pertaining to Kashmiris. So in India of today, where the dominant narrative has been shaped in a way that Muslims have been vilified, and particularly Kashmiri Muslims, how easy is it to use and weaponize UAPA against Muslims? And of course, I would extend that, as you mentioned, there are several other laws that are being used. For instance, in Jammu and Kashmir, the Public Safety Act, aggressively so. Is it fair to say that these laws are being specially weaponized against Muslims and Kashmiris?
Largely, I would say. I wouldn't say only, but I would say the laws are, many of the laws are used extensively against, weaponized against Kashmiris and against Muslims. They are also weaponized in other places and other areas. I mean, if you look at all over India, it's like India will become a Kashmir over a period of time. We are going in that direction. So, but yes, you're partly right in the sense that they are being weaponized, and targeting of Kashmiris and Muslims is happening. And it is happening elsewhere also, and it is increasingly happening elsewhere.
And elsewhere, when you mention elsewhere, is it having a chilling effect on civil liberties, civil and freedom of expression? Because if you see range of activists and journalists being arrested, you have student activists. Omar Khalid has spent over 2 years in jail, and the bail hearings really don't take place. Khurram Parvez, I mean, again a Kashmiri, but he's a civil rights activist. You're in pleading the cases in the Bhima Koregaon, where 16 activists are again arrested. And does that have, these kind of increasing arrests of human rights activists, of journalists, of academics, of people who speak out, people who dissent and strongly do so, repeatedly, if this happens, is it going to have a chilling effect on rest of the activists and people involved in similar work?
It's already having a chilling effect. It's having two kinds of effects. One is, like for instance, just to give you an example, in Bhima Koregaon, the people who have been arrested are trade unionists, civil rights activists, lawyers, cultural rights activists, tribal rights activists, journalists, etc., and leading lights in their own fields. So once somebody, and so having a like if you are a trade unionist and if you are arrested, and if you are a leading trade unionist, the trade union would collapse. If you are a tribal rights activist, then that organization would collapse. That's what is happening. So it is on the one hand having chilling effect on other activists who may be middle class activists, etc. It is also having a chilling effect, and apart from chilling, it's having a devastating effect on organizations which are grassroots organizations. So it's having an impact at both levels.
Yeah. And Amnesty International recently accused the Indian government of failing to comply by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, which is an intergovernmental body mandated to curb global money laundering and terrorism funding. And Amnesty said that though India had, brought in several acts and amended UAPA as part of the FATF, and brought in Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the standards with respect to its recommendation 8 were not being complied with. Now, could you explain what the recommendation 8 is? Or
I'm sorry, I'm not. I have not studied that part, so I won't be able to answer that.
we'll have to get Amnesty, somebody from Amnesty, to actually explain and understand this. So there's another law that I would like to bring in, and this has been extensively used again in Jammu and Kashmir. It's not related to UAPA or any other laws that are invoked for terrorism or against dissenters. But this is the Jammu and Kashmir, the Article 3112C of the Indian Constitution. In 2020, the J&K administration set up a task force using powers under this act to look for people suspected of carrying out activities that can be construed as anti-national or sympathetic to terrorists. And no formal inquiry, no show cause notice, no suspensions, no forum for appeal has been, allowed. But 50 government employees have been terminated in the last 2 to 3 years. So what would you say about this kind of a law? I mean, though the law exists and it says technically, if you go into the wording, it does say that it does the C clause, subclause says where the president or the governor, as the case may be, is satisfied in the interest of the security of the state, it is not expedient to hold such an inquiry. So while technically the actions may be justified, should such a staggering number of people being terminated without being given any reason, without being given any notice, is that justified?
Okay, let me put it this way. Let me first start answering your question by saying that this 311 is part of the Constitution of India. So when we are talking about the liberal constitution, we have to also critically analyze the constitution, that it's not as liberal as it is made out to be. Preventive detention, for instance, is part of the Constitution of India. It's not some law which has been made. It is part of the Constitution, original founding document. That's one aspect. Second thing is, it is true that 311 deals with government servants, public servants, their rights, that they will have all protection, all kinds of protection. They can't be terminated without an inquiry. And then comes the exception, namely that if the governor or the president feels that somebody is acting in violation of this thing, national security or national interest, then they can be terminated without an inquiry. This law has been it has been used earlier also in other places. It's not first time it is being used. And but what the courts have held is that while you don't need to hold an inquiry, you must have cogent reasons why you are doing this. Okay, there must be some cogent reasons why you are saying that a person is acting anti-national, person is acting. Of course, that's actually taking down the meat from the provision, taking out the meat from, because ultimately, unless there is a full-fledged inquiry and unless the person who is charged with something is given adequate time to defend what he is being charged with, he's explained why he's being charged with, it becomes an empty shell. That giving reasons becomes an empty shell. It's a law which should have been very rarely used. It's part of the Constitution, so it's there, but it should have been very rarely. So ordinarily, it is very rarely used. But now, in the situation of Kashmir, it has been used much more extensively. It's a wrong usage. I personally feel that inquiry should be held in any case. You may terminate a person. See, sometimes what happens is you may feel that somebody is occupying a very, very sensitive post and he is leaking out information. there are provisions under the Constitution of suspending a person. That you suspend a person, you tell that person that you, provisions in all laws, that you suspend the person, you keep that person to be at home, don't come to office. We will now hold an inquiry and we'll find out, well, what is the truth, which is fine. Okay. You can do it for everybody. Okay. Even if somebody is supposedly acting against national interest, why can't you give him a chance to explain why what the allegations allegations which he has to meet? So I personally feel that this, I mean, it's part of the Constitution. So unless the Constitution is amended, you can't do much about it. But I personally feel it's a wrong law. You can achieve the same objective, okay, without immediate termination of an employee. You can give him a chance to explain. During that chance, you can ask him to take a leave, go on leave, etc., etc. And at the end of it, if you find that something is really wrong, you can terminate a person. That's a separate issue. I personally feel this not holding of inquiry is not is being misused. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mihir.
Thank you.